I want to start off with Kult of Speed. So I'm in the mood to start off Kult of Speed. I switched it up. I was going to do Stomp. I decided to do Kult of Speed first. So we have this get Blake Jones. So Blake Jones actually went to a 5-round event, ended up going 4-0-1. So he ended up getting a tie. We are going to talk about his tie. This was in Australia. Shout out to the Aussies down under. We do know that they have their odd meta, their unique meta as a whole, where some people are like, where do guys come up with these lists? And where do these guys come up with these theories and ideas? That's just a native to Australia. Sometimes that's just the beauty behind 40K, right? So we're going to take a look at Blake Jones and everything that he had to go into this. So let's look at his list real quick before we go over his win path, because it was a bit fun, shocking. So we have Ghaz Wagon. Yes, you have Ghaz Wagon in the Kult of Speed. I'll talk about that. We have a Beast Boss, Beast Boys, 2 units of Gretchen, base Gretchen, 2 Mega Knobs. They both have a Power Claw and a Kill Saw. The reason you do that is just for the option of what you're going into. You're going to pick. If you're going to have to punch a Land Raider, pick your Kill Saw. If you're going to just punch a bunch of units that are at strength T4, then you're going to pick your Power Claw. 2 units of Stormboyz, 1 minimum size unit of Squig Hog Boys. Yeah, dude, he brought that in his Kult of Speed, the unit of Squig Hog Boys. 3 minimum size unit of Bikers, 2 battle wagons, and then 3 Deffkoptas. So he went through all the Deffkoptas anyways. That's something that he wasn't really willing to concede, right? Deffkoptas, you don't want to concede them, mostly because the damage 3 and because of the 4-up invuln. The fact that in this detachment, you can get a 4-up invuln for that unit, that's something that is almost unheard of for orcs to actually have access to a 4-up invuln. So that's beautiful. You have it in ablative wounds, in mobile wounds that can reactionary move. They could be defending themselves with the invuln. So this ends up being the core thick part of your list. It's harder to kill than people anticipate. But he also bought 2 battle wagons. What's surprising though, right, Gets, is that he did not bring faster than use. That was just baffled me. He really thought the Squigs were worth it. He brought Squigs, kept all the Warbikers in their minimum size units, and it looks like he put Ghaz in there. He did only keep one of these as hard case, right? And the other one is just susceptible to Ghaz. So he's taking Ghaz, throwing Ghaz in a battle wagon, taking a Beast Boss with Beast Boys, putting him in another battle wagon, and then just chucking it up the field. That's what he's doing. He just chucked up all this off the field. Most of the time, you'd be like, well, here's this is what I'd normally say, right? As I'm looking at this for conjecture, I'd say, well, when you have Ghaz Wagon, you stick him in the middle of the table. He exits kind of like your mid-table threat. If someone tries to stat check you and bully you, Ghaz comes out and punches them for you. Not in this case. This case, he put him in the battle wagon. My guy just went full straight pedal to the metal, ran people down. He decided to run people down. I'm sure there were some games where he was more cagey and cheeky, but he doesn't have the big bricks of Warbikers that are pretty much common in this detachment. It's pretty fun to see. The Squig Hog Boys were just like another unit where it's like, nah, dude, he didn't bring Bikers, he just brought more cavalry. So shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. Yeah, let's take a look at some of his paths to victory. Of course, the Aussies at meta be all over the place, but that's so awesome. It's so rare, guys, to see Kult of Speed in singles actually get anywhere close to this, right? The best I've seen them in singles do is 3-2. Just straight up, right? And that's since the start of the codex dropping. So it's not even just Pariah Nexus. It's since the codex drop. No one has been able to do this. So shout out to Blake Jones. And yeah, he can do that. And yeah, you could actually put Gratz in the battle wagon as well. And that's always a good option too. You put Gratz, Beast Boss on foot with the Beast Boys. The Gratz can get out for more OC if a bunch of different units piling out of it. It's awesome. He's just going pedal to the metal. He just keeps one Grat unit in the back. That would make total sense, yes. So super uncalled for. So regardless of what you think of the Aussie meta, regardless of how big this event was, regardless of what his matchups may go to his win path, it is still exceptional, guys. And that's why I call this episode, I open this episode with, we're looking at the exceptions today because it's so exceptional. And sometimes, guys, you can't count on luck, but luck counts. So you got to be happy about these kind of outcomes when you get them to go, right? When you get someone that gets so good, you just be happy for your fellow orc player. So we're going into his first matchup. He went into Necrons, the list Awakened Dynasty. We have Luminar Suzeras, a butthead, Orkian the Diviner, Plasmancel, Royal Warden, Technomancer Catan, just basic Transcendent Catan. So He doesn't have a, the anti-vehicle. I'm having a brain fart right now. Anti-vehicle to Catan right now. He does have this Royal Warden, what I was just thinking. Royal Warden normally is nice because you can actually fall back with your Necrons. That's why it just caught my attention when I was reading this list. Because a lot of the time, especially playing Cult of Speed, you're thinking, I'm going to put pressure on you, I'm going to tag you, and then you're going to lose your killing ability as a Necron player, especially for shooting. Royal Warden at least gives you ability to fall back where you're like, oh, okay, that's but he didn't bring the Nightbringers, I was going to say, or he didn't bring the Void Dragon. Then he has 1 unit of Immortals, a 20-man unit of Brick of Warriors. That's what I'm saying is Warriors are some of those units you want to tag because they're big and stupid and slow. So if you just run up and touch them, they're not going to punch you off them, right? So in this case, he can actually back out. He has a Doomstalker, a Canoptic Reanimator, a big Brick of Wraith, a Doom Arc, Locust Heavy Destroyers, and a Triarch Stalker. So he does have a respectable amount of firepower on this, but a lot of characters, and not the most killy version of the Necrons. All in all, still respectable, very respectable to see. Whenever I want to just look back at the list, what he does have is a redundance and robustness with those battle wagons. And once you drop that battle wagon, right, let's just say you're like, okay, he doesn't have the direct output to reliably take out the battle wagon with just shooting. He has the Heavy Destroyers, he has a Doom Arc, and he has a Doomstalker. We could do damage, but there's a chance that you could just save it, right? So let's say something like a Transcendent Catan decides that they're going to charge it normally, or Luminar Caesarus. Normally, they charge it, they finish it off, and then if something's soft inside, they'll pile into it and touch it. In this case, if you just drop the battle wagon and you drop Ghaz on an objective, boom, you're giving me primary. And 2, if you decide to consolidate into him, you're giving Ghaz a free combat phase. It's most people are not going to be willing to hedge their bets into that. And even if they did, even the Catan goes, well, I have it, I'll take the chance. Well, it's still a big chance you're taking. And then, there's still the rest of the army you just staged up right in front of. So very nice to see him take out a Necron list. There was some thickness in it between the Wraiths Brick as well. That's where having Ghaz makes a huge difference in that. Having a beast boss with the lethal capability and Ghaz still being together, they're still going to re-roll the hit roll and fish for lethals. So you can still pull down a Catan in that case. Something that most Cult of Speeds would actually have a very hard time with. You can see what this kind of output he was end up doing, right? I think I backed out the list real quick. But right here, we have Royal Warden, Plasmancer, Technomancer, Catan. You're looking, these are normal things that are hard to kill. Big Brick of Immortals, Big Brick of Necron Warriors, Big Brick of Wraiths. Having Ghaz, Beast Boss, Beast Snaggle Boys re-rolling for lethal. Sure, you're not popping them on crit 5s, but you're getting them on 6s. Definitely helps offset the fact that you're normally just in a transport because you have so much stuff that's running up the field as you. You have all the Deffkoptas that can possibly pop off, right? You can't rely on it, guys. If you're building your Cult of Speed list and you're like, look, this is going to be my assured outcome is just from shooting, right? You're not going to have that. You're not going to have that. And you have to think about that as you're looking at Blake Jones' list. He's not looking at my list and saying, hey, I have just shooting from my Cult of Speed list. He very much teched into about 500 points. Right, let me look at it. A little over 500 points, maybe about 750 points of just straight melee, which you would call Warhorde melee, right? Units that you would typically say just run a Warhorde. He said, no, I'm going to bring that because you need that with the wall turn to go off. You need something to have some value behind that. And I wouldn't say it's mandatory, guys. Remember, most of these things are generalizations, try to make evaluations of people lists for why these reasons might be chosen. These are not rules that you have to abide by. These are just suggestions and advice that you may want to listen to depending on what you like to play as and your preferences, right? So maybe he decided, I can't get over the fact that I do nothing on the wall and I want to punch people and really don't like to be stat checked, but I appreciate the 4-up invuln because 4-up invulns on Deffkoptas feel amazing. Well, he stuck that all in together and decided he was going to make it work, and you could see how that would work. He has Ghaz for his multi-damage into Wraiths, yet he has the Beast Boss and the Beast Snaggle Boys for something like a Catan. Right away, you can get value and everything from that. And then besides that, you have the Deffkoptas. So let's go into his game 2 real quick because I'm trying to grasp and trying to help people kind of understand what's going on with this list as it's very much not the typical version of Cult of Speed that you would see. Then we have the second matchup, Chaos Knight. He says, getting wood for spoon. So this player might be notoriously known for not having the best outcomes just because getting the wood and spoon just means that you kind of lost a lot. But he might be trolling, right? Because his list isn't necessarily not meta. So he has a War Dog Stalker, followed by a Brigand, a Huntsman, a Carnivore, another Carnivore, and then he went for, this is why he put Wood and Spoon, a Chaos Warhound Titan for 1,100 points, followed by 3 Nurglings. The real 3 Nurglings may get somewhat real, just because at least he can infiltrate and kind of create space in that. But A Chaos War Dog Titan. Should I pull that up? I feel like I should just pull up the Chaos War Dog Titan. I'll pull that up in a bit. But of course, we'll just say this isn't the most meta. And Chaos War Dog. Let me pull it up. I'm curious. Sorry, guys. I didn't. That's so stupid. Chaos War Dog Titan. Is that a thing? Yeah, Warhound Titan. No, that's not the right one. Whatever. I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So whenever you bring in him, if the Stampa is not realistic to bring for 1100 points, I doubt this Chaos Warhound Titan would be too. I'm sure he's very good at popping something like a battle wagon. But then you're really just not playing the mission. This is where you're actually really happy that you have Ghaz and the Beast Boss as well, because normally this kind of stuff would give you a hard time. They'd be really good at popping buggies. They'd be really good at popping bikers. They'd be really good at popping Deffkoptas, normal trucks. All would go down to brigands, huntsmen, carnivores. We'll just dismiss this big time. We're just saying in this matchup generally, Chaos War Dog spam would already be very difficult for Orks and Kult of Speed. Having those tools doesn't dismiss the fact that he had the tools and assets to actually deal with this, right? You could pull up to something that's a funny list like this, which is another list we're going to look into later on in this stream, the Stampa list, right? Most people look at the Stampa list and say, you're bringing the 800 point model plus a 50 point character to make them work. 850 points for this big dumb brick. You can barely move. Sure, but you can actually lose to a straight up stat check like that. And in this case, when you're running Kult of Speed, more so than other detachments, yet he still was able to overcome it. So shout out to him for that, even though it wasn't the most realistic, and the player was definitely going to win the for wooden spoon for that one. Then we get into his third game where he goes into Death Guard called the Stank. So he have a Biologist Putrefier, 2 of those guys, 2 Foul Blight Spawns, 2 units of Malignant Plaguecasters, Tallyman, and then Typhus. So we know what's here to come, boys, right? Plague Marine spam. So we got 2 big bricks of Plague Marines. They're both going to get both of the characters, so they can get fight first. They can get critical 5+, so they can have lethal 5+. Then we have 3 Rhinos for those 2 big bricks of Marines, but there's obviously something else going in there. We have a unit of Cultists, a unit of Poxwalkers, 2 units of Nurglings, a big old RoGB, 3 War Dog Brigands. Now, RoGB, he actually gives the ability to half someone's OC. He has a bunch of other abilities as well. He can fight a little bit better. He can give a unit that's Nurgle a +1 damage as well. So there is a little bit of synergy there. Typically, you would go for the 4 Feel No Pain one. Difference. There is a reason for you to bring War Dog Brigands, because War Dog Brigands allow you to pop enemy transports so that your Plague Marines can actually get involved. This is a very character heavy list, as you can see, including with the big thick fat boy. So there is good tools behind this, a little bit more ally heavy than we typically see, but as you know, as just like Orcs, Death Guard are kind of dealing with one of those incidental moments in between where they can have a hard time. The one thing about Death Guard that's notoriously known is that they're slow. Right, they're slow, and once they do get out of their vehicles, they do start dying. Right, nothing really on this list is super valuable besides Ghaz and that 1 battle wagon. Everything else on here is just kind of getting some utility by just existing. Right, you're not getting a good train. Those Plague Marines might come out, characters pop out, attack the Deffkoptas really rapidly. Then 2 more Deffkoptas come down, shoot them with all their rockets. They get good blast off it. They get twin link, 3 damage flat. They start peeling them apart. They diminish that unit right away. Then you can run into it and start finishing it off. Even if they do have -1 to hit or even -2 to hit, you do have the Squig Hog boys on this list to start dropping Squig bombs on people to slow them down. They do have to still respect you for the same reason RoGB has to respect you for what we spoke about in the first matchup. For something like a Catan, something like RoGB is very vulnerable to a Beast Boss, of course, with Ghaz going off as well, because he is strictly a demon. Therefore, he's going to be taking 4-up saves, and he's not really going to have a good counter to that other than eating it in the face and maybe hoping that he gets a 6-up Feel No Pain from Shadow in the Warp, right? So there's definitely tools behind this list that you're finding that it wasn't just that, oh, he's playing Kult of Speed and he caught people off guard because he just spammed the same unit 40 times. No, he brought stuff for Horror Horde that made sure that he did good Orc stuff that he was supposed to do on the actual wall, right? He still had the pressure, the punching, the threat, and instead of saying, I'm just going to call the wall and touch you, it's I'm going to call the wall and punch you off the table, which was really sick because he ended up going into the 4th round and getting a tie into the person who got first place here. So we'll take a look at that. I do have a couple little notes about it because it was an Adeptus Mechanicus list. So I haven't been gracious enough to play a bunch of AdMech games. David DeCo does have AdMech, but he hasn't been able to play it since we're doing the channel all the time. So I do have some notes about it, but I do like Admech. They're just expensive, so you don't see them too often, which makes the matchup even harder to win because you're not familiar with them. So Rad Zone's all about pressure because it's looking to push armies and keep them into their deployment zones. They're dishing out mortal wounds and focusing on battle shock tests. There's different conditions you can choose, like taking D3 mortals and auto-passing battle shock. There's munition manipulus buffs for giving lethals. You can get 4 up invuln once per game. And then they actually have other movement shenanigans. So we have a tech priest manipulist for that shenanigans, a techno archaeologist. 2 of those gets 1 unit of rangers, followed by 2 units of vanguards, 1 iron strider ballistara unit, 1 cataphrone breacher unit. Like we said, they can actually get lethals and 4 up invuln. They have 2 units of the sky stalkers, followed by 2 units of the sterilizers, 3 units of Cerberus raiders, 3 men, and 3 units of disintegrators. Got it. So this disintegrators are kind of like their versions of tanks. Pretty good point value for that. So movement shenanigans here. I'll just pull up real quick. Something that I noticed as well was something like the Cerberus raider unit. So the Cerberus raider unit already have a 9-inch scout, followed by 12-inch movement. Like I'm always warning orc players whenever you're playing something like a dread mob or maybe a warhorde truck spam, or you're playing a bunch of squigs and you squig hauling noise, you know that other armies that have similar units to this will just say, for example, Drakari with their Beastmaster unit, where they get 9-inch scout and then they get a 12-inch movement as well. They can take a big model count unit. In this case, these Cerberus Raiders aren't big model count, but they're like cavalry units, so they do have big bases, and they get the scout right in front of you. And then they get to all make a normal move. Yeah, they can make a normal move up to 6 inches if you end with 9 of them, as long as they move wholly within another unit of a battle line, Adeptus Mechanicus unit, or simply just a D6. So these guys can end up moving around and screening in front of those guys. They also have, I think, reactive move on a different unit. I'm not sure about that. Oh, the Flamer Chickens also have, the Flamer Jetpack Boys also have abilities too. So I think I went too far ahead. Let me get back. Yeah. Went too far ahead. There we go. So he does have a good amount of movement shenanigans also here. The Cerberus Raiders don't have flamers. The sterilizers don't have flamers. They have just D3 shots. So list is mostly about moving, fast speed, keep you within 6 to be annoying. And yeah, especially if you go first, you have that scouting potential behind that. And they just have a good amount of unit count. So overall, I would say that'd be quite difficult. I think most people will concede that if you have never gone into a faction and you go into them at a tournament level, sure, the player is going to be, even if they're honest, is going to let you know what it's going like, but it could very much catch you off guard. And I know something like that going into an Admech list would catch me off guard. So both these guys tied in here. So how they did at the end would really offset that, right? Their overall score would offset that. That's how that player got first. So shout out to Blake for pulling that off, because not only did he go into a cheeky army that was also fast, so he had Cult of Speed to help kind of manage that, which I'm sure made it more fun, right? Because you're going to Admech, that's where something like Warbikers come into play. Squighog Boys come into play. Even Stormboyz, where you can take Stormboyz in advance and charge all game, they can end up running into units like of Admech battle line units and start beating them up and bullying them. Warbikers with their kind of array of DACA shots and twin link and that. So I really like to see always just more tools than you really expect. It's just up to you to orc play. Remember, you got to use all those assets. Use all your bullets, your firearms, your CP, each of your model. Be safe. Be safe when movement and everything. So let's go into his last matchup, because I'm just really impressed and happy with Blake Jones getting this off. So we got his final matchup going into Chaos Space Marines with the veterans of the Long War. So we have Abaddon the Spoiler, Chaos Lord with Warp Master's Gift, and then Master of Executions. 1 Cultist Mob, followed by 2 units of Legionnaires, 3 Rhinos, 1 Land Raider, followed by a Big Brick of Chosen, a Forge Fiend. Then he immediately went to allies with Plague Marine Brick. So this list just felt very elite to me, right? Which means it's not doing very well into something like that Cult of Speed list, right? You can see he has Abaddon, a Land Raider, Big Brick of Chosen. Each of those already is pulling up 250, and then a Forge Fiend. Boom, he's already at 1,000 points between just those 4 units, and then everything else is kind of just chaffish. And even then, something like a Land Raider requires more assets to go into for it to be useful. It means they're all going to be kind of impact with each other into one big Death Star, right? When the people mention the Death Star, it means kind of like Star Wars Death Star, where there's one focal point of just pure death, which is how this list ends up kind of working. He does have a bunch of transport, which maybe is best assets, but he ended up just, overall having this many killy yet durable more durable than you expect assets, catches most people off guard. And so there's multiple battle wagons. If you choose one battle wagon to stop Ghaz, then the beast boss gets out, maybe with some Gretchen, and then he runs you down. He punches your anti-tank thing that popped the battle wagon. If you decide I don't want a bunch of OCN bodies in my face because I don't want 10 Gretchen plus 10 beast snaggle boys and a beast boss in my face, because I don't want to lose all my primary and I don't want this stuff in my face on the wall to try to clean up, then I'm going to pop that battle wagon. Well, then Ghaz gets out and he gets to run into you. Then the Deffkoptas get to run over, and if anything that stood in the way to shoot at you or to try to get in the way to screen you gets to just take a bunch of blast, damage 3 profiles on there. You still got the Warbikers to run into any kind of T3 screens, even just T4, T5 infantry, because the Warbikers are T6. They can kind of get stuck in a fight. And these Squig Walk boys, maybe they're playing reserve. They can come off the battlefield flanks or the edges of the battlefield, because if you stick them in the middle, they're really going to die. But if you run them off a battlefield side where they're not going to take a bunch of firepower and then get stuck in another fight with another infantry, get into like a skirmish, you can get value off that as well. They act maybe as an escort as your Deffkoptas move up one of the side of the fields, right? Because only one's going to pop the 4-up invuln per turn. That's going to be the one that's maybe responsive, right? It's going to maybe shoot for you. Maybe it's the one that wants to do a reactionary move for you. Maybe the Warbikers do a reactionary move. CP management is a factor in this as well. So it is pressure. It's really gun-ho. I'm under the impression that, yeah, he very much did, because battle wagons are so big and he still has Koptas and Bikers. You know, maybe he put one Kopta unit into deep strike because he knew he was going to go so far forward that he can get off with that. But yeah, this sort of matchup of this veterans of the long war, they're not getting a bunch of value out of their detachment rule into any one unit, unless you're going to be like, I get to do it into Ghaz. But there's still multiple wagon. You got to chew through a wagon. You got to chew through the mega knobs, and you got to get to Makari if you're not in lethal range or throwing grenade range, and you actually have to shoot it in through the invuln of a 2-up. It's really annoying. And if you don't, then if you don't focus on him, he gets to run into you. Feels really good. I like to see that. Nothing in his list, right? So he ended up winning that game and ended up going 4-0-1. So shout out to Blake Jones. But just in summary of his list, as we're looking at it, nothing's the epicenter of this list. You can argue Ghaz is because he's Ghaz, right? You could argue that. But in reality, what it doesn't, the list doesn't fully revolve around just Ghaz. He has a bunch of different assets for scoring. Yeah, they can get in a little bit of a fight here and there. The Deffkoptas act as the mobile file support, but at the same time, they have good OC. They have deep striking, so they can stay safe, and they have the ability to 4-up invuln, so they can actually tank oncoming damage as well, right alongside those battle wagons. Because you're not going to be able to hide everything, but you should be slowly edging everything off the battlefield. That's kind of just how Kult of Speed works. So threat saturation, a lot of different units, but I love that they're all kind of sitting around 200 to 150 points. You know, a couple units squeeze above that for you know, like Ghaz, of course. But all in all, really in favor of how he ran this list. Not having faster than use, like someone said in chat, could faster than use been worked? Yeah, you would think you would put faster than use on one of these, the beast boss, but he might just be under the impression that I just never need it. It was pretty cool. He said, "Don't edge for too long," but I'm gonna. So that's what's going on here. So shout out to Blake Jones for his Kult of Speed. Whoa! Because man, guys, like I said, today's about the exceptions. So I know where none of us are really sold on Kult of Speed. None of us are really happy about the total state it's at. But shout out to Blake Jones for standing on business and getting the best record that I've ever seen on Kult of Speed in the history of WAAAGH Tactics since 10th edition started. Shout out to Blake Jones. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!